Hi, we're on section 4.2, which is called the percent formulas, and this is basically just learning how to set up a problem and then find an answer. So we're going to use the base, rate, and portion, and so it's important that you understand the definition of each one. The base is the value to which the percent is applied, and so that is something you have to think about each time. Which part of this will my percent be applied to, because that will help you figure out which number goes in for the base and which number goes in for the portion. The rate is always the one that's easy to figure out because it's the percent and there's only one of those. So we either have the percent or we're finding the percent. The portion excuse me, is the product that you get when you multiply the base times the rate. But you will see as we go through these problems, many times we're not actually multiplying, we are dividing. So that means that we're looking for either the base or the rate, and how we set this up will determine whether we multiply or divide. So this circle is something that can be very helpful to you when you're setting these problems up. And you guys, you have to practice these because they can be quite difficult sometimes. So if we're looking for the portion, I just said this, we're going to multiply the base times the rate. So you can think of this line here as division, right? And this line, when they're side by side, as multiplication. So if we need the portion, we just multiply the base times the rate, and we have that. If we're trying to find the base, then we're going to take the part we know, the portion, and divide it by the rate, right? Remember, this is going to be our division bar right here. Portion is over rate, so we divide, right? The portion divided by the rate. Okay, so the portion divided by the rate gives us the base, and we can tell what to do just by getting everything put into the circle, and then in this case the base would be a question mark, right? We don't know that. And on the last one, if we're finding the rate, same thing. The rate would be the place where we have a question mark because we don't know that yet. And to find it, we take the portion and we divide it, right? Division, remember that a fraction bar is also considered a division bar. And so portion divided by base then would give us the rate. The only way to really understand these is just to practice. All right, so let's look at this first one. I left out the portion base rate part, and so you would just label your circle, right? Here's my portion, base, and rate. And so it's important that you have those in the right spot and that you understand how to set that up. And then we're going to look at the numbers. It says, if the answer is a percent, round to the nearest tenth of a percent. We'll talk about that as we go when we need to round. Okay, so 45% of 380. The percent is applied to the 380. So remember, the rate or percent is always going to be applied to my base. So my base number is going to be 380. My rate is 45%. But when I actually calculate this, I'm going to change 45% to a decimal and then multiply that. So we're going to take 380 times 0.45. right? And that's going to determine our portion, right? That's equal to our portion. So when you multiply 380 times 0.45, you get 171. So 171 is the answer. That's my missing part. And we have found that particular one. That one was kind of long. All right, next. 413 is 70% of what number? Now we have to fill in, right, portion, base, and rate, and then we're going to see what number goes where. Now, notice this time that my percent is applied to 70% of. This means multiply. All right, let me do that with a different one. Multiply. And we're looking for what number. So the what number is actually going to be the base this time because the 70% is applied to that number. So my portion is 413. My base is what I'm looking for. My rate is 70%. I'm going to write that in decimal form, so that's 0.7 or 0.70. You can write it either way, and it's okay to leave off the 0 on the decimal. Now, to actually calculate this one, we take 413 and divide it by 0.7, because remember, if I have something on the top part of this and on the bottom, that means we divide to find the base, right? So my base is equal to 413 divided by 0.7, and that would be 590. So my base is 590. And you can check yourself. If you take 70% of 590, you'll get 413. So you can kind of work at that backward to see that, oh yeah, that does work once you know the answer. Okay, so this one says 121 is what percent of 95. Now this time it says what percent, so we know what the missing part is going to be, and it's going to be our percent. So portion, base, and rate. I'm looking for the rate, which is the percent. So this time that's the missing part. And it says what percent of 95. So that makes the 95 the base and 121 the portion. If you can think about this each time, right? What percent of 95? And that's going to show you that, oh, right, it's applied to the base. The percent is applied to the base every time, even though in this case, a lot of times students want to put the 121 in for the base because it's the larger number, but that's not how this one's going to work out. So to find our rate, we take 121 and divide it by 95. And then that's going to give us a decimal number, and it's going to be over 100%. My decimal number is 1.2736. I'm sure there's more numbers out there. Notice this says we're going to round to the nearest tenth of a percent. And so it's important that we understand when we're rounding to the tenth of a percent, that's not the same as rounding to the tenths. The tenth of a percent means if I first of all, just rewrite this as a percent. So that's 127.36%. Remember, we learned this on the first lesson. We move the decimal 2 places to the right, or multiply by 100 and put the percent symbol. Now we can do the rounding part. Oh, what happened here? So sorry about that. I don't know what happened. If we do the rounding part now, we're going to round to the nearest tenth of a percent. I was actually just trying to change colors. And that would be, here's my tenths. The 6 tells me I'm going to add 1. So then as rounded to the nearest tenth of a percent would be 127.4%. And that's the answer I'm actually looking for. So, a lot going on here. Remember to apply every time, apply your percent to your base, and then pay attention to what your directions say, in this case about the rounding, and just work your way through that, okay? Because that was the only one that was a percent so far. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video, and then I'll finish section 4.2 on the next video.